everyone. Sorry for the delay. We had a meeting that ran a little late earlier. Welcome to the Arts Committee, and congratulations on your appointment to the Arts as an Arts Committee member. We'll start with an oath of office. So if you would please stand and raise your right hand and repeat after me. I have the oath behind me, so if you need to follow that along. I, and please state your name one at a time from left to right. I do solemnly affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter. And do you attest to the oath that you just took? Thank you. You may lower your hands now. Congratulations.
Since we don't have a chair from the last meeting, shall we have a temporary chair to get us started before we do? Or would you like a staff liaison? Yeah. All right, I'll just go ahead and function as the chair until we do our election. So first of all, welcome everybody. I'd like to call the meeting of the Arts Committee to order. We will do a roll call. Member Green?
Here.
Member One?
Here.
Member Johnson?
Here.
Member Shaw? Here. And we are expecting Tenzin to arrive this evening. He said that he would be here. We have one.
I think it's a she.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Brad is out of town, and a new member, Sabrina, is out of town as well. So it'll be potentially 5. So 4 is the quorum for tonight. If we get another, our city clerk will will pause the meeting to swear them in. Okay. And if I can get a volunteer to read the land acknowledgement before starting this meeting. Is anybody willing, or I can do it if nobody else is?
The City of Albany recognizes that we occupy the land originally protected by the Confederated Villages of Leiston. We acknowledge the genocide that took place on these lands and must make strides to repay the moral debt that is owed to this indigenous people, specifically the Albany tribe. We thank them for their contributions, which have transformed our community and will continue to bring forth growth and unity. The City of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationships with the tribe and together build a better future for all that now make this their home.
All right, thank you. Item 2 on our agenda for tonight is a selection of committee chair and vice chair for 2025. City Clerk, would you mind running this for me? It's been a minute since I did this procedurally.
Sure. Any one of you can nominate anyone else, including yourself, to be the next chair, and no second is needed. And you can go through and have nomination called off, and then whoever's nominated last will vote on that one first, and then take the vote backwards. So whoever reaches a majority, that's the person.
Since not everyone's here, can we do it next time?
You can certainly choose to do that. You can table the item, but I would suggest to have a motion to table it for the next meeting in second and do the roll call vote.
Okay, I move that we motion it. I mean, I move that we table it.
Do we have a second?
I second that.
Okay, motion and a second to table this until the next meeting. Member Shaw?
Aye.
Member Johnson?
Aye.
Member Wan?
Aye.
Member Green?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. I'll continue to run the meeting for this evening, if that's okay with the committee. All right. Thank you. Okay. Next, we have the approval of minutes. From December 9th was the last meeting. Did everybody get a chance to read? Does anybody need to review the minutes together, or do we have a motion to accept the minutes as is, or any corrections?
I move that we accept them.
Do we have a second?
I second that.
Number one, to accept to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Aye.
Member Johnson?
Aye.
Member Shaw?
Aye.
Member Green?
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
I like it.
That's true? Yeah.
Trying to do the same as council.
Yeah, keep you on your toes. All right, next we shall open this up to public comment. If there's anybody in the
Nope.
over there. Looks like nobody's in the virtual audience, and we don't have anybody here anymore in our in-person audience, so we'll move forward with our presentation. So tonight, we have two of my colleagues here doing reviewing the advisory body handbook for all of the committees and commissions. I think, is this the first one that we're doing this season of committees and commissions? So I'll turn this over to Director Jeff Bond and City Clerk Ann Sue.
Need to go? Yeah, sure.
Well, good evening. My name is Jeff Bond. I am the Community Development Director, and joining with Ann to give you an orientation to our advisory body handbook and to some of the rules and regulations that apply to the committee's work. We have, in the past, we've done this presentation as once per every 2 years in a large meeting with dozens, all the different commissions and committees and dozens of people present. And this year we're trying something a little different by going to each meeting individually, hopefully giving you the same information, but a little bit more interactive and give you all a chance to ask all your questions, which sometimes I don't think we always had a chance to do that with the larger crowd. And we have quite a few slides to show you, and there's quite a bit of detail behind each one of these. We're going to go quickly through it, and we're not going to try to answer every question. Some of them are legal in nature, and we're not attorneys. We're familiar with the law, and we will always try to help. But some of the more technical legal things we would want to, particularly in a real life situation, we would confer with our city attorney, who's always happy to help us with this.
Please feel free to note down your questions. You can always email us, and then we can answer them separately. We'll try, of course, the ones we're able to, we'll try to answer here if time allows. But otherwise, email to us, and we can respond to you in an email.
So we're going to kind of go back and forth on this presentation. This is, as Jeremy mentioned, the first time we've done it this year. So bear with us as this is a presentation we've given before, but it's been a couple of years. So we'll try to stay on track here. feel free to interrupt at any time if there's something that we say that's confusing or you want some clarification or more detail and so forth. Neither one of us mind the interruption. So, Anne, I think you're going to
Yep.
start rolling first.
And I think on the agenda, you probably saw a link. That's actually a link that's to our newly uploaded advisory body handbook. Has some changes in it, as well as a video from our city attorney giving the Brown Act presentation. Previous year, like Jeff said, she will give the presentation to a big room full of all the different advisory body members. But this year, we're trying something separate. So we have her video presentation online. We have her presentation slides online. And then the advisory body handbook, we're doing it here, which you saw the handbook online as well. So just to, as an introduction for everyone, we have a total of, for this term, we have a total of 8 advisory bodies, 2 of which are adopted by city charter, which is the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the Board of Police and Fire Pension Fund Commissioners, or we call it Police and Fire Pension Board. And then the other 6 are adopted by City Council action. There are the Arts Committee, yourself, the Climate Action Committee, the Housing Advisory Commission, which is sort of new this term, Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Commission, the Social and Economic Justice Commission. Sorry, that's the wrong one. It's the Racial Inclusivity and Social Equity Commission and Transportation Commission. And you can find the information about the origin and charge of each advisory body in the list of advisory bodies at the beginning of the handbook, as well as on our city website.
So one of the things that we'd like to clarify and sometimes confuses people is kind of the role between yourselves, the city council, and city staff. And the point of this slide is to emphasize that you all have a advisory role directly to the city council. And so the recommendations and insights that you provide may be handled by staff, but that's your channel of communication direct to the city council. City staff have a different reporting relationship. So Ann and I both report to the city manager, and then the city manager reports to the city council. So what this means as a practical matter is sometimes the direction we get may be different than the direction that you would give us as a committee if you had the opportunity. And it's our job to follow the direction of the city manager. We're always welcome to hear your advice and feedback and so forth, but ultimately our boss is the city manager, not your committee. And usually that's not a problem, but sometimes some committees or commissions can get a little frustrated with that because maybe the city manager is going in one direction and you would like to go in a different direction. So just pointing that out.
And in the email congratulating you for the appointment for this body, you should have received the email from our deputy city clerk letting you know that the term for this appointment runs about 2 years until December of 2026. Of course, there's an interim period of 45 days that is for the transition between this term and the next term. And if there's any need to resign from the body, or if there's any reason for removal, we will try to fill those vacancies as soon as possible. And communication is the key factor being on the advisory body, especially if you are going to be absent, if you need to participate virtually, which we will talk about a little bit later, and also the city attorney talked about in her presentation. Please make sure you communicate that with your staff liaison, Jeremy. And also, if you think that you might have a conflict, which we'll also talk about a little bit later, make sure you let the staff liaison know. And as I mentioned earlier, please make sure that communication with the staff liaison is, he knows. Just like the few members that are absent today, we want to make sure we have a quorum for the meeting. And you probably already know, we need a quorum to have the meeting conducted. So since your body is composed of 7 members, you will need to always have 4 members for the meeting to happen. So say, for example, some people didn't, if some member didn't tell Jeremy that they're not coming, and the other members are sitting here waiting for that quorum to be met, and then that's, to respect everybody's time, we want to make sure that's communicated. And then you want to let Jeremy know as soon as you know that you might be absent, 24 hours, at least 24 hours minimum preferred. That way it can be constituted as a excused absence. And there's a list of, if you are absent for more than 3 meetings from any 12-month period, that's constitute cause for removal. So you want to be careful with all the absences. It's still me.
Well, no, I've got a couple of things I can add here. In addition to, letting Jeremy know if you're not going to make it or you're running late, also let Jeremy know if you need to leave early. Had this with a commission, one of the commissions that my department staffs, where had we known that a little bit sooner, we could have rearranged the agenda so that important stuff could get done within the window of time that the full group had. I want to mention a couple of other things. Unfortunately, we live in an era where we have to talk about our safety a little bit. So I wanted to let you know there are a couple of things. First of all, to my knowledge, nothing horrible has ever happened in this room. But sometimes people can have medical emergencies or something like that. I want to just point out a few things. First of all, if there is an emergency of some sort, if at all possible, just call 911, have someone identify somebody, whether it's a staff person or one of you, call 911 and tell them what's going on, whether it's a medical emergency or a person that's disrupting the meeting. In the event of a medical emergency, we do have an AED out in the hallway across on the other side of the lobby. We, of course, have the fire department over there. They're almost always there, but sometimes they might be out on a call. And even if they're not out on a call, you can probably get the AED over here and on somebody faster than they can get here. So highly recommend that that you be aware of that. If there is something uncomfortable happening in a meeting, again, this doesn't happen in Albany, but it does happen in other cities. It's okay to take a break. Like somebody says something really horrible. They're allowed to say horrible things, by the way, but you as a committee can say, look, we need a 5 or 10 minute recess because that guy just said something really creepy. So that's perfectly legitimate to take a break and kind of gather your thoughts a little bit. The other thing, if something happens and it's time to leave the building, the main way out is, of course, through the lobby. If for some reason there's something going on there, if there's fire or whatever, and you don't want to go out that way, the other way out is through this door back here. There's a conference room, and then there's another sliding door, a sliding window in that conference room that gets you out towards Marin. So that's your kind of second way out. Again, if there's something going on in the lobby, that it's better to go out the back way. So sorry to have to raise those kind of issues, but do want you to be aware of what's going on here. Again, your staff person will be able to help you with all those considerations, and if the unfortunate thing does happen.
And I just want to mention briefly, based on the slide that we have here, anything basic, your application that you submitted to the city to apply for advisory body member, I want you guys to know that those are considered public records, so they may be subject to disclosure or the Public Records Act. So if somebody requests for them, we have to show it to them. And then also, any communication that is, that say members of the public sent to you guys, you do have a group email here, but everybody is blind copy on it, so you guys don't have each other email. So it's to avoid accidentally hitting reply all, and that might constitute a Brown Act violation. And then city attorney's presentation talk more extensively about Brown Act. So that's something that you may want to watch after the meeting, and make sure you review her video and her slides. The other thing to suggest is, I know you guys all apply with your personal email address. If you would like, you might want to consider setting up a separate email address just for the city business use only, or for arts committee communication only. That way, if anytime if there's a public records request that says, I want to see all the email communicated between, Member Johnson and the public, then you know that you only have to pull information from that set aside email address, and not your, email account that's mixed in with your school email or your other personal email in there. So that's just a suggestion. And if you like to change that email address, please just email cityclerk@albanyca.org, and we can make that change for you and make that confirmation once we make the change.
One last thing I'll mention on this slide is, and I think you maybe probably know about this, the month of August is no meetings. That's what we call the August recess. It gives us a little bit of a breather as staff people. And so if you're thinking about what you want to do during the summer and you don't want to miss a meeting, August is a great time to plan to do something. Next, I just wanted to mention in passing, the City Council has recently adopted a strategic plan. It's on our webpage. Part of what we will be doing as staff people to various commissions and committees is reporting in on some of the things that the committee has been doing and will be doing. And that's what's now called as a kind of an annual status report. So, and it's going to really be focused on what the City Council has identified as their strategic planning goals. There may be other things you'll be working on, that's fine, but the council wants us to keep track of what they consider strategic, which is very helpful. Next, I thought I'd mention really briefly kind of what goes on behind the scenes to support you in your meetings. In terms of preparing an agenda, most of us start working on drafting an agenda a week or two before the meeting. In some cases, not very often for this committee, but perhaps from time to time, we'll want to do a public notice to someone, which is mailing something to them, whether it's a postcard or something like that. Maybe we'll post them. So we want to get those public notices out typically at least 10 days before your meeting when you're discussing the item. And that is another reason why it's good to know if you're not going to be able to make a meeting. If we know a couple of weeks ahead of time, we can make sure that we're not putting out a public notice for a meeting that we're not going to be able to hold. I mentioned the role, the public comment and the importance of managing. Hopefully people have decorum and treat the committee and other members of the public with respect. But We do have the constitutional right to say whatever we want to say in this country, and sometimes in some of the bigger cities, Los Angeles is an example where they have people who come in and say really horrible things. And as I mentioned, you pretty much have to tolerate that. That's their constitutional right. The best way to handle it is just ignore it. Don't engage. That has shown to be unsuccessful. It doesn't change anybody's mind, and it only tends to escalate the situation.
The chair can always choose to take a recess.
Yeah.
Short recess to kind of help with the situation. And usually, sometimes after a 5-minute recess, and when you return to the council chamber, the person who's maybe upset may have calmed down or left the room.
Next, I'd like to mention the role of the chair. You'll be selecting the chair at your next meeting, which is great. I think it was a good suggestion to postpone it until all the committee members can be there. Part of the role of the chair is to manage the meeting. And how long are you going to spend on each agenda item? You know, perhaps if it's a big issue and lots of people are here, you might want to limit the amount of time that individual people have to comment. A chair would also be managing the comments from each of you. So making sure that everybody on the committee that has something to say has an opportunity to say that, and maybe sometimes suggesting that some committee members wrap up their comments, and so that everybody has a roughly equal amount of time. And then importantly, it is the role of the chair to also just kind of keep a big picture on the meeting and just have some idea of when the meeting should end. Rarely will there be a need for the Arts Committee to go super late, but maybe there is, and that's the case. The chair should explain that up front. Otherwise, try to target a time. I believe 9:30 is the recommended.
Typically, that's the latest, 9 o'clock, but often the Arts Committee is ending about 8:30.
Great.
One of the more efficient committees.
It's a wonderful thing. After a couple hours, everybody kind of loses their energy, for sure.
Team focus.
Another thing to touch on here is once you make a recommendation to the city council, maybe several of you or all of you will want to go to the city council to speak to that recommendation. It's best to, when you have that opportunity, to make sure that you're representing your entire committee. So even if the committee is split on something, you're the person there representing the committee, to be able to say to them, like, this is the decisions of the committee. Not everybody agreed. Here are the pros and cons, but this was the conclusion, the recommendation of the committee as a whole. With respect to media inquiries, do keep in mind that while everyone is welcome to speak to the media as an individual, any sort of official representation of the city should be routed through the city staff, Jeremy or Ann or whoever. We do have a public information officer that will try to organize the response. And that if you feel like you need to respond personally, then you just make it clear that you're responding as an individual member of the committee and not representing the city's official position, unless you've been designated to have that role. And then finally, social media. We'll talk about this in a couple of different slides. It is really tricky because social media is a form of communication. It is a way to violate. There are several different laws that you could violate using social media. So just be really careful about what you post. And I can tell you from my experience, also be really careful about what you read. On things like Nextdoor, I would say at least half of what I read about on Nextdoor is not accurate. In the areas that I'm personally involved with and have knowledge about half of it is wrong. So just keep that in the back of your mind when you're reading something and think, oh, this is outrageous, we have to do something. Let's make sure that that's accurate information.
And emojis and thumbs up, thumbs down are part of expressing your opinion too, so you want to avoid them.
I mentioned public media posts are a public record, just as though you were writing a letter on city letterhead. It's essentially the same thing. Any written communication, text messages, if you're texting back and forth about, hey, this is a great project, I'm really excited, or I really don't like it, that any member of the public can come in and ask for a copy of that text message. Same goes with social media and emails. So just be very careful about that.
Yeah, anything that you want to discuss, any issue that needs to be discussed, it should be in the open forum, open meeting. That's why we have this meeting. There is a brief, it's a slight exception if you have, like, say, what we call an ad hoc committee or a subcommittee, where you form a group of less than a quorum of your body, and you guys can talk about that. That's sort of like your committee buddy. So I'm not going to go into too much detail because it's all better explained in the city attorney's presentation, but we just want to make sure that everything should be communicated here openly in the open meeting.
Oops, jumping ahead. So next, we're going to give just a really high-level overview of some of the key state laws with respect to conflict of interest. Basically, for those of you that are over 18, you should be careful about taking action on anything that is any sort of, say, an art installation that's within 1,000 feet of any sort of real estate interest that you might have, whether it's your home, your place of business, a rental property, so forth. There are lots of exceptions, so if you're within 1,000 feet of something that you're working on, do check in with Jeremy, and Jeremy can run it up through the chain of leading to our city attorney if necessary. If you're under 18, you don't have to worry about it, at least until you're 18.
Even though they're voting members?
Yeah, I looked it up.
Okay.
But it's still probably a pretty good idea just to get in the practice of avoiding doing anything that would be perceived as a conflict of interest.
For Arts Committee, you're probably not taking like final action. Most of the item that you're doing, you're not taking a final action on it. But say, for example, if you are deciding on a piece of public art in a certain location, that location is across the street from your house, which could be very possible, then you may want to be careful on and double check before the meeting, so that you can inform Jeremy that I may have to recuse from this item. That would be the proper action.
Then lastly, this AB 1234 training, it's a piece of legislation that passed a number of years ago, but it's still called it's the Assembly Bill 1234. If in a situation, if you were to attend, say, a conference and we're going to be reimbursed by the city for travel expenses, then you have to take this training. I think it's like an hour or so online. 2 hours now? And it's just
But
ethic.
a little over an hour.
Yeah. And there's a test at the end. It's an online test. It's not a big deal, but it is something that's required if you would be getting any sort of financial reimbursement.
We do recommend everyone to take the free training anyways, if you think it's just good facts to know and to avoid on violating anything that you don't want to violate.
So this is a slide that you don't have, we're not going to test you on it tonight, but this goes into a little bit more detail about conflict of interest and the financial benefit of a potential project that you might be voting on. And there are basically 3 zones from, let's say, a property where you live or where you work. The first zone is if it's within 500 feet, the law presumes that there is a financial benefit unless there's evidence to the contrary. And so that's 0 to 500. Beyond 1,000 feet, The law presumes there's not, unless there is clear and convincing evidence to the contrary. And in between is a gray zone. And there are 4 or 5 different criteria that are apply to that gray zone. In most cases, I don't think you're going to have a conflict of interest. But again, when you start to think about this, like, I'm pretty close to this installation as an example, do check in with Jeremy before the meeting. I think that'd be really an extra safe move. And we don't want you, what happens if there is a violation of conflict of interest rules is there is a state commission that investigates this, and they do have the power to charge fines. So next, we're going to switch over to a presentation that our city attorney has prepared. She's with the law firm of Best and Krieger, which explains the logo and everything. And talk a little bit more about the Brown Act, which is the open meetings law. And
The Brown Act is specific to California.
that's right. And basically, it's a very simple thing. Everything you do is supposed to be out in the open. No secret meetings. And there are various things that we do to make sure that that's the case. I'm going to kind of skip over this. Some of these slides are a little repetitive, so I'm going to skip over some of them. So the law says that it applies to legislative bodies, and you may think we're not a legislative body. Well, you are, because the city council is the legislative body for the city, but because you were appointed by the legislative body, you carry that label with you as well. So just as you're reading through these and hear other people talking about this, you are subject to the Brown Act. You want to talk about this one?
Sure. So this is where I was mentioning a little bit earlier about a separate, smaller group of less than a quorum. So there's 2 types of these groups. One is called an ad hoc committee, which I think previously we just kind of call it subcommittees. They are supposed to be temporary advisory committee that is less than a quorum of your body, so meaning 3 people or less, and you have a specific purpose, and once the task is done, it is dissolved. And usually this task is 1 year or less. So I know previously perhaps you had a limited task, but then it ran from year after year after year. Well, that will actually become a standing committee. Standing committee is a continuing subject matter that continues, and the difference between the 2 is ad hoc committee, you can meet separately. Perhaps you have to do some research on the subject that you are going to discuss at the open meeting. You can do some research, say, I don't know, Member Green and Member Guan, hey, let's meet together and let's look up some information so that we can be prepared and present at the open meeting. Well, this meeting between, just for example, Member Green and Member Guan, it can be held at any place. It could be held at their house. We don't have to notice the public on the meeting that they're having. It doesn't have to have a set meeting time. If it's a standing committee, which I don't believe any of our advisory body currently have standing committees. Council do now, but advisory body usually don't have standing committee. This is where any meeting that you meet and talk about things has to be noticed, publicly noticed, has to meet in a public accessible place. It has to meet the 72-hour advance notice, and you have to basically talk about anything you talk about to the public, like this meeting. So usually for advisory body, it's just an ad hoc committee where you kind of have a smaller group of people that do special research on certain topic and then come back and report to the arts committee, and then you guys can talk about it all together in the open meeting.
the reason we got a late start this evening was there was a standing committee of the city council meeting before you. It was just two of them, but it's a continuing meeting, so they had the regular noticing.
Yeah, and it's about heavy-duty stuff.
Yeah.
So it took them a little long.
So what is a meeting? It is a gathering to hear, discuss, deliberate, and so forth of any item that is within your subject matter. And a gathering includes electronic gathering. So if you have an email exchange or you exchange reactions to something on social media, even if 4 of you said thumbs up to somebody else's post, that's technically under the law a meeting. And a serial meeting is where maybe 2 of you talk and then one of the 2 of you talk to a third person and then another person talks to a fourth person, a little graphic to show that. So these are different forms of serial meetings where the message kind of gets passed. So if Anna and I talk about it, and then I go to, if Anna and Jeremy are on a committee, and Anna and I talk, and then I go talk to Jeremy, I say, well, Ann told me that she really likes this, and then Jeremy goes talks to another person, that chain creates a meeting. So again, we love to have meetings, but they all need to be open to the public so that everybody can have input into them.
And just a reminder, this applies to, of course, the public would not know about this Brown Act serial meeting, but if the public comes to you and says, hey, Member Johnson, I know that Member Guan said XYZ, and Member Green told me XYZ. What you want to do is let the member of the public say, thank you, but I would prefer that you don't share what the other member have expressed as their opinion. So just a reminder of that, because if the member of the public tells you and you talk to somebody else, and then also the public says the opinion of the other members, that constitutes a violation also.
In other words, a person who doesn't know the Brown Act can inadvertently create a violation of the Brown Act just by being friendly and talking to you and sharing what they learned from somebody else. A couple of things that are not meetings, a few things that are not meetings, obviously talking with members of the public individually, as long as you're not connecting all the dots of the different members. That's fine. If you're going to a conference or some other public event, that's fine. And then if you were to come to another public meeting, so if you all showed up for a city council meeting, that's fine, because that's a publicly noticed meeting. And a person in the general public would recognize, oh, they're there to talk about an art installation at a city council meeting. That's fine. So, mentioned the other government agencies, ribbon cuttings, groundbreakings, that kind of thing is just fine. And we've already talked a little bit about ad hoc committees.
Would you include an art opening at the foyer gallery for everybody to attend?
You can definitely attend, just don't talk about, say, hey, at the next meeting, we're going to talk about this item. So what do you think about the next item?
Yeah.
So don't share about that.
You want to take this one in? This is adding things to the agenda.
No, they don't.
Yeah, this really wouldn't apply to this committee very often, if at all. This is more information on, well, this might be applicable. So if you get a member of the public at the public comment portion of the meeting who asks something, asks questions, or makes some statements and requests a response, generally speaking, if it's not on the agenda, you can't respond. And
You can't talk about it.
and what we sometimes will do is, Jeremy would say, I'm sorry, we can't respond to that tonight. If you want some more information, contact me. If it's hey, when is when is the ribbon cutting for or a groundbreaking or something, then yes, it's okay to say, yes, it's such and such a date and such a time. That's just basic factual information, but it really shouldn't have anything more than a sentence or two to respond to a public comment that's not on the agenda.
You also want to avoid get into a back and forth conversation with whoever's talking about, whoever's making the public comment. So I've shared with the staff liaison to try to keep the public comment to, for example, the public comment period is up to 3 minutes, depending on how many people is making the comment. And then some of the announcement stuff, it'll be up to 1 minute. And everybody should only speak once and not cede time to the other people. So that you don't want them to or ask a question or make a public comment, and then you guys are discussing and the person said, well, I have another question based on your discussion. They've had their chance. So everybody gets one chance to speak.
Again, just to kind of wrap up the main point of no action allowed on things that aren't in the agenda. If somebody does come and says, hey, this is something I think you need to work on, you all agree that that's a great idea, you can ask that Jeremy put it on a future agenda. Been kind of bouncing around and it always seems to come back to social media. You can post on social media, but you just have to be careful. And you can provide information to the general information to the public and help people navigate city government for sure. So if somebody's asking you about an event or about what's happening, you can do that. Factual information, because you're not engaging with one another. That's the main thing about social media. And there's nothing about responding to that would be an uncomfortable public record in the future. I think we've kind of covered these points. We're getting towards the end. Hang in there.
So these next couple slides is actually the most asked question by all the advisory body members. So since COVID, there's a lot of times people are either unable to physically be here for the meeting, or they have to travel for a business trip or whatever. Anyways, whatever the reason is, they aren't able to be here physically in the chamber to be part of the meeting. So there's a few options. One, there's the traditional teleconference rule per the Brown Act, which means you have to let the staff liaison know that, hey, I am going on a business trip, and I will be attending the next arts committee via teleconference, which in our case we use Zoom, so online. You would have to let Jeremy know before the agenda is posted, because the location that you're meeting from has to be publicly noticed on the agenda. So, for example, if you're attending from your cousin's house in New York, well, their address has to be posted on the agenda, and you have to allow public access. It's very unlikely that a member of the public says, oh, I'm going to go attend this meeting from New York. Very unlikely. But in the case if somebody does say, I saw that you have this remote location meeting, so I'm here to attend the meeting. Well, you got to open up the door and let them in and attend the meeting virtually with you. So we've had a few cases where somebody says, I'm on a business trip, I'm at a coffee shop in, I think it was Oregon. Can I attend this meeting? After checking with city attorney, after all, she was not able to attend from that location because the meeting, usually our meeting starts at 7. That coffee shop closed at 7:30. That means the the meeting probably won't adjourn before she can. And also, she said this is a coffee shop, very busy. Well, then the city attorney asked me, well, would the person attend using a headset or an earbud? Yes. Well, then that's not okay, because you have to be able to let the public hear what's going on in the meeting without sharing equipment, other than the thing for the display. So there's all the rules about it. So when that situation come up, please check with the staff liaison or email city clerk. The other one that's very common that people ask for is using AB 2449, which means it's for just cause or emergency circumstances. So for just cause, there are a few reasons that you can, showing on the screen. So if you qualify to participate using AB 2449 just cause, you can, and we'll give you a link to join virtually. However, it's limited to no more, usually for Arts Committee, it'd be no more than 2 meetings in a year. So you can only use this option for 2 of the meetings. And you have to let the body know as soon as possible, and including the beginning of the meeting. So you would say, I'm joining online using AB 2449 because you don't have to go into the details of why. Like, you can just say, I have a contagious illness. You don't have to say what the illness is. Or I have child care need. You don't need to go into detail about whether somebody cannot watch your kid or whatever. But you do have to share that. And then there's a couple other criteria, like your video must be on all the time. You cannot say, oh, let me turn off my camera while I run to the bathroom or I go grab a cup of tea. No, the camera has to be on you all the time. And I think the next slide. Next slide. Next one. Sorry, I think I talked through these already. Next one. And then camera must be on all the time, and then if there's somebody in the room with you, you have to announce it, and you have to say, there is an adult 18 years or older, and this person is my daughter, my adult daughter, or my uncle, or whatever. And all the votes must be by roll call, which we do anyways. And if something happened to the online meeting, then the meeting got to stop. And to have that person participate virtually, there still needs to be a quorum of people here. So that means we still need to have at least a minimum of 4 people here in the chamber. And the person online cannot be counted towards the quorum. And the other reason for AB 2449 is for emergency circumstances. I don't think it happened to our city, but I heard, maybe it's Berkeley or a nearby city, they had a member who attended the meeting from the hospital bed, which we hope you don't have to go to that extent, but that can happen because, I don't know what happened, they broke their leg and had to go to the hospital and last minute, so they asked to use the AB 2449 emergency circumstances option. Same thing, no more than two meetings in a year.
A couple comments. First of all, back to the traditional teleconferencing, it basically doesn't work. So it's very rare that that works well. I suppose if you're in a publicly available place and you can post it and do all those things, then it works. But most people who are traveling, you don't know what hotel room you're going to be in. You don't want somebody wandering into your cousin's house in New York. I mean, it doesn't work.
Open your hotel room.
Yeah. But the emergency circumstances in the 2449 does work. We have a couple of people on other commissions that have young infants, and they are nursing and so forth, and they figure it out.
Yeah, especially during the pandemic time, we had several members that unfortunately caught COVID. And it's not to the point where they're really, really sick and can't come, but they don't want to spread that contagious illness. So that has worked for several meetings.
Well, we just went really fast through a lot of stuff, and thank you for your patience with this presentation. If you have any questions, we can answer them now, or you can forward them on to Jeremy, and he will make sure that we get the right answers back to you.
And I know we went pretty quick, and I probably skipped a couple slides, but feel free to check out online. It's under, of course, we have the new city website. It's albanyca.gov. And if you click on government, advisory body, and then there's a drop-down menu on the top. First row is advisory body training and resources. So Jeremy is sharing, thank you. If you go to government advisory bodies, I usually just click the menu at the top, down, next to advisory body. Yeah. There's the first one, advisory body training and resources, which is the link I provided on the agenda. So the video right there is the city attorney giving the Brown Act part of the presentation. And if you scroll down, there is her slide, advisory body handbook first, which we just, I think last week, revised it. And then her slide is right there, Brown Act training PowerPoint presentation. And then if you like to read further into it, the Ralph M. Brown Act Government Code section is included. And then also the League of California City puts out a publication called Open and Public, and this version is 6. It's a guide to the Ralph M. Brown Act. That's something that I refer to all the time, but if you're interested in some, either bedtime reading or just reading for some leisure time, please, you can take your time and read through at a slower pace.
Does anybody have any questions?
I have a question. If there was a circumstance where we were moving to a new location that's not in Albany, will we still be eligible to be on the committee?
Depends. The reason I said depend is there are every advisory body has 5 members are appointed by the council member, and then there's from individual council member. And there's 2 seats that we are called the student seat or the affiliated to a student seat. Those 2 seats are appointed by the city council as a whole. And those 2 seats, as long as the student is attending a school in Albany, so they can say live in El Cerrito and live in Berkeley, but they go to Albany High or they go to, what's that? School on Solano. Anyways, St. Mary's or the private school, then you are still okay.
Okay, thank you.
But if it's the seat that is appointed by individual council member, they require to be Albany residents. And once if you're required to be Albany resident and you move away from Albany, then you do have to resign.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay, with that, thank you for joining us tonight and sharing this
Sorry, we took a
wealth of knowledge, bedtime reading for everybody.
Yeah, and any question, feel free to email Jeremy or email city clerk.
All right, we'll take a moment for make a transition here. How are y'all doing on your first Arts Committee of 2025? All right, let me bring up our agenda. Thank you both.
Yeah.
So, first of all, we're gonna move on to the next. We have two other presentations for tonight. I think what we'll do, you can all see each other's names here, but we'll do full introductions at our next meeting when we have everybody hopefully in attendance, and we'll go through that. And since we had a fairly long presentation on the Brown Act, well, let's get to some art stuff for a little bit. I want to take this opportunity to introduce our new members to some of the basics of the Arts Committee, and go through the Arts Master Plan, and also on the agenda for tonight is the Public Art Projects Plan that the Arts Committee will be looking at, and in May and or June reassessing the priorities for the Public Arts Projects Plan. And then at the end of the agenda, we have some announcements, and I have a few updates to share on current projects that are ongoing, and a few next steps. So if you're okay, I'll just go ahead and let me just get my screen share up together with my presentation, and see if I can find where it is. All right, so everybody got a chance to take a look at the agenda, and was everybody able to look at the Arts Master Plan, or are you familiar with the Arts Master Plan for the City of Albany? Okay. If you're not, this is going to be a very high-level overview. The most recent Albany Arts Master Plan was completed in 2010, so it's about 15 years old now, but still has good information in it. Essentially, it's a vision and a roadmap for public art here in Albany to strengthen the community and create some civic pride through art. You probably have seen a number of things throughout Albany. At Ocean View Park, there's the rose sculpture. There is. I'm trying to think of all the herons at Albany Bulb. There are a couple examples of public art that's been created within the last 20 years or so. And it's basically making a connection with urban planning, sustainability, and development here in Albany. Essentially any development that happens here in Albany over $300,000 requires that 1.75% of the total cost be set aside for public art in Albany. And so it applies to most private and public developments. And the funds can be used to support on-site art where say, a building is built and the developer can choose to install art there on site. If you look at Belmont Village, there's a sculpture in front of Belmont Village. That was an example of that. Or they can opt not to do that and then contribute those funds to the City of Albany, and that is what the Arts Committee has discretion over, recommending to City Council how to allocate those funds. So within the context of the Arts Master Plan, there are specific zones in Albany, and really wanted to focus on high-impact visible locations. In the Arts Master Plan, they identified Buchanan Marin and San Pablo, Solano Avenue intersections, and City Hall. And really putting emphasis on equity and neighborhood presence through a variety of diverse site selections. So public art programs, this can be murals, gallery exhibits, and seasonal festivals. Currently, we have, and we'll talk a little bit about this later, but the Arts Committee in the last term selected use, what was it, $80,000 of public art funds to support mural programs? 85, yeah, I think we went a little bit more. For a series of murals to be installed in Albany. We are in the process of the first one right now, and but due to some state legislation, we've had a little bit of a roadblock that we hope will be resolved this year. There is another program that's running currently called Path to Belonging, which I'll talk a little bit about later, the Creative Justice Art Project, which is in process. So these are a couple examples of what have been funded in the most recent 2 terms by using these funds to support local artists creating art here in Albany. We also are building out a public art registry to streamline the opportunities and outreach so that we can connect with artists in the Bay Area or regionally to let them know of opportunities to create art here in Albany, and then focusing on youth-involved projects to foster ongoing engagement. These are a few things, again, very high level details of what's in the Albany Arts Master Plan, but if you, after you're done reading the Brown Act, you can pull up the Albany Arts Master Plan and review all of this. So implementation, aligning the projects with city planning and capital improvements, so it's connected, the funding and the development here in Albany. Here is a prioritized site matrix and artist input to guide decision making. Essentially, the Arts Committee is the advisory body that provides the recommendations to City Council. So this is one of the key aspects of what the Arts Committee is doing here, is to make decisions about how to spend that money and review the different type of projects that could come before the committee. So any questions? I don't profess to be an expert on the Arts Master Plan. As Harsh and Deirdre know, I'm still relatively new to the Arts Committee within the last year and a half, and so I'm still getting myself caught up. However, I have been in Albany for a number of years, primarily filming all of the meetings, so I'm still kind of aware of what's going on, but now I'm diving more into the actual details. But does anybody have any questions about the Arts Master Plan or the role? Okay. Well, since this is presentation, let me just open it up for some questions from the public. Being that I don't see anybody in the virtual audience and there's nobody here, I think we can pass public comment. And if you're okay, we can move right on to Public Arts Project Plan, okay? So the Public Arts Project Plan is a component of the Arts Master Plan. So sometimes it can be cumbersome to deal with all of these acronyms, but these are going to be 2 things that the committee will be looking at. But essentially, this is part of what you will be doing within these next couple months, is looking at what was funded last year, what is the funding available now, given some of the current allocations of money towards arts projects in Albany. And making some decisions or perhaps making some changes depending on what direction this committee would like to go. So essentially, this is a tool that is part of the Arts Master Plan to allow you to help focus and prioritize. And this is reviewed and updated regularly. So we do this at the beginning of each 2-year term. Look at it. Maybe there's no changes that need to be made, but maybe there's a few things to add. I know that we've had some interest in past programs that were paused or stopped during the pandemic. So we're looking to potentially bring some of those back. So it's the structure is current, planned, and conceptual projects in Albany. Projects are categorized by type, timeline, and funding source. And in 2023, 2025, the PAP total recommended budget was $160,000. So with that amount of money, the last committee decided to allocate, I think it was $85,000. 81,500 towards, and I'll bring, I have some other numbers for the other things that we're working on. I think that's the next slide. So yeah, so this is as of the last PAPP. There's a creative justice art project, and $30,000 had been allocated in, was that 2021, 2023? Harsh, if you can, that was when that project began. The murals in the commercial district, 81,500. That's the current project that we're working on right now. The sculpture loan program allocated $5,000 towards that, and then the heron sculpture we continued over an amount of $8,250, knowing that likely the restoration of that particular sculpture would be more. These were numbers that were sourced. A little bit of background: the heron sculpture has been installed since 2007, almost 20 years old, and so there's a significant amount of rust and a bit of decay. It was repaired once in the past and repainted. But the committee in the last term wanted to look into the cost of a full restoration and what that would be, and we had one of the committee members working with the artist and with our Public Works Department to determine a path forward to restore that and what the cost would be. We don't have the actual cost, but we would imagine it's going to be much more than this, probably closer to $25,000. And then one of the things that will come up with the committee is the committee will be making a decision as to, do you want to invest $25,000 into an older sculpture, or is this the natural cycle of this particular work of art, and should that money be invested into something new? And then it leaves some amount of money in reserve for community projects funds, up to $36,000, small-scale local art initiatives. But the committee didn't, in the last term, make any specific recommendations for projects or programs or outreach related to that. We did buy the sculpture, that's true, yeah. So that funding did come from there. One of the sculptures from the sculpture loan program was purchased by the city, barred spirals. Barred spirals. And that did come out of that amount. When this comes to the committee, likely in May, I'll have updated numbers and the actual amounts. What is remaining in the fund? What is encumbered with the murals project and with the creative justice art project? But I think when last we looked at it, the total amount was roughly around $200,000, maybe a little bit less. And then so all of these numbers right here would be subtracted from that total amount in the fund. So there's not a lot of money left once all of this money is spent, but it could be several years that it takes to spend this money to pay out all of the artists that are already working on these projects. So it's kind of there, but kind of not there. That's essentially what I'm saying. So again, the PAPP is essentially a tool for aligning public art with community values and city planning. So bringing it back to the committee, allowing the public to make suggestions, make recommendations, allowing the committee to do some outreach with the community, pulling together all the parts so that we're creating art in Albany that is relevant and connected to the community. It creates a process for guiding artist selection. We had a panel last year that reviewed a variety of applications for the first mural that we did. That was part of the process described in the Arts Master Plan, but implemented through the Art and Public Places, Public Art Projects Plan. And that went well. We were able to find an artist that I think that everybody was quite happy about, and that's the one who is very close to being in contract right now. And then by doing all this is supporting transparency and collaboration across city departments and with the public. So really the next steps that we're working on now is monitoring the Path to Belonging implementation and the mural siting for the mural project. So these are two projects that are happening now in 2025. Path to Belonging, I'll give an update under our announcements later, is Susan Moffat's Creative Justice Art Project. That is happening now, and the Arts Committee will receive a few reports and updates throughout the rest of 2025. The mural project, an artist was selected at the end of last year, but because of some state legislation, we've had to pause because we can't officially go into contract yet with the artist, which has delayed the project. We were really hoping to get paint on surfaces late summer, fall, but it looks like that's going to move a bit later. We're hoping for the best, but I'll talk a little bit about that later. Some of the things that are left over from last year is the sculpture loan program and the Heron sculpture evaluations, like I mentioned. So we had a subcommittee last term who created a new call for artists for a sculpture loan program here in Albany, where we'd be looking for artists the Arts Committee and the City Council would essentially, what do you say? It's kind of like a lease option to buy for sculptures here in Albany, and we'll have some open spaces that'll be available for temporary and possibly permanent art to be here, kind of rotating cyclically throughout the city. Again, the Heron sculpture evaluations. Then we'll look at some other community-led projects potentially for the set-aside fund. And then you'll also look at other projects that committee members might want to bring back. I think at our next meeting in May, Member Johnson is going to share about the Fall into Haiku program that was a past program here, a popular program here in Albany. Currently unfunded, but we can look at, since the budget cycle is coming up, we can look at what that would mean to bring that back, and any other suggestions that committee members might have. I think that brings me to the end of, again, a very high-level introduction to Arts Committee topics of interest. Any questions?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead, Member Green.
So I think I remember from last time that there was a empty sculpture location.
That's correct.
Where is that? Do you know?
I will have to review my notes to.
Okay.
And there was also, yeah. So there was, if I remember correctly, and maybe Harsh, if you can correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. I think there was still there's an empty one and the possibility of creating and doing another pad in another location that doesn't have a pad yet. That's. Yeah. I don't think so, but I think what we'll be able to do by the next meeting, I'll have that information.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
I have a couple questions.
Go ahead.
In the small projects fund, are there any limits on the kind of art that it could be?
So I think it would have to fall in line with all of the standards that the committee has for either for the murals, for the foyer gallery. But I think the idea would be creating opportunities for local, regional artists, school-based projects, groups to be able to come to the Arts Committee and solicit contributions or funding for a particular program. That said, in the effort of transparency and equity, I think you would want to make sure that anything that was being presented or offered would be presented to the community as a whole in some established program. So, but anybody could come to a meeting and say, hey, I've got a great project, can you fund it? And the committee would be able to look at an individual request specifically.
I mean, could there be like a call for proposals for that fund?
Yes.
Okay.
And it would be up to the committee to agendize that, make have a discussion, and determine how much money should be spent or allocated per project for. And so, in the same way that the committee looked at a murals program and developed that, likely would be a subcommittee that would start some work, put some ideas together, and present it to the committee as a whole.
Okay, and then the last question, but I might be jumping topics. Does that state legislation affect only muralists?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Specifically muralists. Any other questions? Okay. And we don't have any other discussion. We don't have any subcommittee updates because essentially every term new subcommittees will be created. So at the next meeting, when we have everybody, when we look at the PAPP, there may be a need to create some additional ad hoc committees to discuss and work on some of these projects. Which brings us to item 6, which is announcements, which is, now I finally get to share a little bit of information with you all. So if I have been, actually let me bring this back up here. If I have been unable to be reached or not able to respond as fast as I would have liked, it's because I have been redesigning the City of Albany website. And we just launched it last week. It was about a 2-year effort. But I just wanted to mention this because we now have the capability to do some better outreach, some better communications in a redesigned site. Namely, we can have buttons and pictures and legible fonts and well-organized content, and a search function that actually works on the new website. So some minimum standards, but and it's taken a while to get here, but I wanted just to draw your attention to, again, what we shared earlier for advisory bodies. Arts Committee is here. It took us a while to get started, but hey, everybody, we have every seat appointed for the first time in a while. So thank you all for applying, for coming together on this. The Public Arts Master Plan is here. We also have a connection to the Arts in Albany section, which over the next few months I will be building out with some more information. But we have the foyer gallery here, and we just released our call for artists for the 2026 session. So I just wanted to point. I shouldn't try and look at the screen share while I'm doing this, but so the call for artists went out on April 10th. So we'll be receiving applications for new artists for 2026. I changed the schedule a little bit so that typically the Arts Committee would receive all of these over the next few months and then review them in September. But it created a bit of a bottleneck in the fall. So we pushed the submission back to June. So in July, you'll be able to review artists and make a selection for the foyer gallery. Essentially, if you've been in Albany for any period of time, gone to the community center, it's the space in between the Albany Library and the the community center on the other side. This committee selects the artists for installation there. Brad Carlton, who is not here tonight, is the current gallery manager. I would imagine he would be interested in continuing, but this is something that will be decided in each term. So if there's somebody else who wants to do it, or if he's tired of doing it, we try and rotate through. But he's currently the gallery manager and has put together a variety of artists for the remainder of this year. So I think that's all that I wanted to mention on the website. But we also have some new standards for the city in terms of our notifications and our news that we feature on the website. So as things come up, we have a better, more effective way of sharing information with residents. Last term, the Arts Committee had a subcommittee on what did we call it? I'm trying to remember what the name of the subcommittee was for sharing information with the public. Marketing. There we go. Thank you. I was tongue-tied for a minute. But now with our news function and a new way of doing mailings, what we'll likely end up doing is adding some aspect of that to either to the agenda or for programs that are coming up that Arts Committee will share with me, and we'll push it out through all of our channels. We were able to do. I missed a couple with Brad in the sending out notifications for the last gallery opening, just because I was so involved working with getting the site launched. But now that it's launched, we should be fine to put it into the weekly newsletter as well as run it on the website and then send out through email distribution. We have a new service for that. So that is the update that I have for the website. I also just wanted to share that if you haven't seen this, this is the Path to Belonging project that Susan Moffett has been working on for this last year. Was anybody able to attend any of the events? So she had 2 events in October at the community center, doing a series of storytelling and bookmaking workshops, essentially gathering stories about being here in Albany to work towards people understanding where everybody is coming from. And the plan is to do a series of events throughout this year and culminate with an artist talk and a gallery display at the community center at the end of 2024. So they had, what they did already is, let's see, there are 2 workshops that where they were, let's see, let me go back to the stories here. So these were the workshops they were doing with local artists, bringing people together to have these conversations and create art in place. So I suggest taking a look at Path to Belonging. These were there are some interesting conversations that came up through the process of doing this work. And if you'd like to have more information, just let me know, and I'll either put you in touch with the artist or be sure to share these out when the next events are happening. So these are an example of the books that they were doing. And some of the events, there's going to be a potluck on the Greenway during the summertime. The paper monuments, these will be some other displays throughout the city. There is the Pillars of the Community, which will be a projection artwork on the Albany Greenway, I think in the fall. And then the exhibition at the community center and a potluck and an artist talk that talks about the experience. And then with that, they'll be documenting, and this is the Creative Justice Art Project that the Arts Committee has funded. The other update that I have for you is about the murals project. So in don't have anything to share, but there is, so has everybody been able to see the artist that was selected for last year's project? Did we share that? Melanie, okay. Let's see if I can bring that up really quick. Bear with me just for a second. Actually, I'll just mention there was an artist that was selected, received the highest rating from the panel, and they agreed to the project. It's a group of 3 artists working together, and we went through the process of getting started, getting the contract all together where everybody agreed to it, and we were ready to go. And there's been this aspect of state legislation. Well, actually, let me step back. In 2023, while this was getting started, there was a group of, I'm looking to see, the Contractor State Licensing Board essentially was looking at disparities between artists, muralists specifically, and painting contractors. And they wanted to hold muralists to the same standards as painting contractors, which was essentially requiring a licensing, state licensing, and a contractor's license to paint murals in the state of California. And if somebody was going against that and painting murals outside of having a contractor's license, it could result in fairly hefty fines towards the city, to the artists. And cities stopped doing murals at the end of 2023 and throughout 2024. And within that period of time, the state legislature has created a law that is in the process of being passed. It has passed a committee. The law is AB, what is it? SB 456. So it's currently working it through the state legislator in order to make it possible, again, for muralists to be able to do work without having a state contractor's license. And because of that, many, if not all, California cities have stopped work on mural programs on city properties. And so with that, the city of Albany has signed on to a letter of support in support of this legislation, and has been advocating at the state level to get this passed so that we can sign the contract with the artist and move forward. But since the city council can't approve this, can't sign the contract until this passes, basically we have a pause on the program until that passes.
Got it. So does this essentially mean also we can't even begin the process for other sites? And why would that be if we don't have to enter into a contract later on?
Well, I think it's undetermined whether or not the city would be able to fund other sites if it doesn't pass.
Is there no way to operate under the presumption that, I mean, it's already passed through one stage. It's in the
It would have to
appropriations
likely, and this is getting a little bit past updates, so we probably should agendize it or at least have a part of the discussion under PAPP at the next meeting. I'll have to get some more guidance from the city attorney, but I think that I don't think the city can move forward with any of that unless it changes the terms for the agreement and requires a state contractor's license for any of the muralists. That would probably be one of the mitigating factors that would need to be added in. But
I guess what is the legal risk if we're not entering any contract?
to get started,
Yeah.
I can ask and I can find out and see.
I mean, if we could spend this year that we now have, I mean, originally we were like, let's just do all 4 at once if we had our choice. I mean,
Yeah, BART was, this particular project that we're talking is on BART property, so it's a little bit more of a challenge, but we have worked out all of those details. Then other city sites would be on private property here within the city.
except one's the school district.
Yeah.
But, so that's gonna have its own issues. So I guess what Harsh and I think Harsh is saying, I know what I'm saying is, like, if we could keep moving so that next summer, assuming that there's budget, we do them all next summer.
I'll take it back to the city attorney and find out and be able to report back by the May meeting.
Yeah, because otherwise, I mean, you know this, Jeremy, it's gonna be like years. And,
And how many years does everybody have here?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not kidding, actually. So, like, if we could get it done in these 2 years,
Well, then
not, you know, or at least farther along than it is right now.
it really depends on what the city attorney says.
Okay.
So as much as I can find out and report back at the next meeting, I can have more than just an update, and then we can look at some maybe I can provide some options.
And like, if we were to do that, and the proposals came in, you know, if there's a way, I'm just throwing ideas out there, that like maybe we go through them first rather than the city, or something like that.
The only thing is, like, since it's only an update and an announcement, we can't have a discussion on
Okay,
that right now.
sorry.
But I hear that, and I'll bring back what I can, and if we can agendize that and have a full discussion about some options, or we can incorporate that as part of the PAPP at the next meeting.
Yeah, not trying to turn this into a bigger thing, but I think just sharing from my side, if you know, if we are not able to make any progress on this until this bill passes, which I think bills get signed in the fall by the governor, if it somehow misses that trend, then it's next year. It's not terribly motivating for us to kind of continue on. And the sorts of things that we might work on.
Yeah, and also the committee would probably need to make a decision about funding for it, because there's about $81,000 that are allocated towards murals that are kind of in holding for this. And if it doesn't look like it's going to happen, the committee would be looking at not doing murals and doing something else.
It's possible. The only thing we've funded in the past 4 years is the purchase of one sculpture. So I haven't seen a lot of money being spent otherwise. So.
Can we add that to the next agenda, please?
That will be, well, let's see, are we there? Those are the only updates that I had. Are there any other committee updates that anybody would like to share? And that brings us to, well, actually, the agendas have changed, but so we don't have a particular section for, actually, request for future agenda items. So that would be a request for a future agenda item, correct? Yeah. All right. So a discussion of the status of the murals project and some possibilities. Yeah. Okay. Any other future agenda items? Since we have everybody here, I know that we have a presentation for Fall into Haiku, Spring into Haiku. That's it. Then we can adjourn. The next meeting is scheduled for Monday, May 12th. I'm very glad to have you new members. Thank you for coming tonight on spring break, right? Because everybody here is Albany High. Yeah, right. All right. Thank you for taking your spring break time to come to an Arts Committee. The meeting is adjourned.